the editor of Shroud News, an international journal on the Shroud of Turin, and the author of 3 books on the subject. And I would just solicit your comments on the symposium in general.
First thing that has to be said is that the whole of this symposium, which was compressed into 2 days, was one of the most interesting and exciting, perhaps, that I've ever attended. Here we are in Paris with syndenologists from all over the world who've gathered to discuss their current views, the latest controversies, if you like, and that's exactly what has happened. I suppose one of the most important things that's happened, really, in the whole of the Shroud story is that since last October, when the C-14 results more or less wrote the Shroud off in the eyes of the public, it has galvanized into action everyone who knows anything about the Shroud, and the public know very little about it because they get all their information about that and every other subject, let's face it, from the tabloids. And we had this 3 or 4 months of preliminary leaking of information which said the Shroud is a fake. You know, you've got this extraordinary illogical deduction that because one test found a result, and that result we probably have to accept as being a genuine result from what was tested. But because of that, then they made this great leap of logic to say, therefore, the Shroud is a fake. Now, what has happened is that everyone involved has been galvanized into action to examine their own views. Is this possible, or is it not possible? And there's no doubt in my mind that the thread running through this whole conference is that extraordinary doubt which has now been placed in people's minds, because those of us who know something of the history of the Shroud, who know about the other vast series of scientific tests which have, after all, been going on for nearly a century in one way or another, know perfectly well that the Shroud cannot be medieval. So we have this extraordinary paradox of a cloth which science cannot tell us how the image came to be on it, how it was constructed, and yet at the same time what is otherwise perhaps a very reliable test tells us that it is medieval, and we know that it just can't be. And there, I think, is what the future of syndenology is going to be. We have to determine somehow or other whether there is a mechanism that can be reproduced, and this was brought out very strongly. I mean, science itself, as more than one speaker has indicated in this conference, science itself has proved, if you like, the authenticity of the Shroud. And now we find ourselves trying to grapple with this extraordinary paradox, that yet what is sometimes regarded as the be-all and end-all of all tests says that it's medieval. And we know that it just can't be. We don't know the answers. I don't think we're going away from this conference knowing the answers. But at least we've a great deal to think about and a great deal more research and study to do.
And you are a senior industrial